So good afternoon. Thanks for being here. We just concluded the special session and addressed a lot of very important needs. First and foremost, I think, was that this state and this House stands with the people of Israel, with the Jewish people across the globe, including in our state, 100%. Unequivocal, unwavering, unfaltering. And we will continue, while others may step back, we will continue to lean forward in support of our Jewish brothers and sisters across the globe, and especially in this state. And we took strong statements today, both in the resolutions that were passed as well as the resolutions that were rejected. I thought the comments by members of both parties were strong and compelling. And I think that the members have to take a stand. If they can't take a stand on an issue like this, what can you take a stand on? And unfortunately, there were some members who chose not to be here for the vote that are here. And they can answer to their constituents as to why they didn't take a position on that last resolution sponsored by Representative Nixon. Questions?
Do you have a list of members that you can provide us who were excused?
There's your list. He asked first. But you'll let everybody know, Gary, after you print your article?
But these people they didn't have excused absences for nothing?
They did not have excused absences. That's correct. There were people that did have excused absences, to be clear. One of our members lost their mother. But, I will say this, and we had a moment of silence, obviously, for her. I hope that one day we'll get to a place where we don't have moments of silence for 100 million victims of communism. I hope that one day we won't have a moment of silence for people who are killed because of the color of their skin, like happened in Jacksonville. And I hope that one day we will not have moments of silence for victims, Jewish victims of yet another attack, unprovoked, against people based on their faith. So, questions?
Yeah, on the My Safe Florida Home program, it doesn't include any kind of requirement to study how effective this program is. Does it help in reducing premiums? How does it help? Why does it help? How much? This seems to be a pattern with the legislature on insurance issues. You guys pass stuff, and then there's no follow-through or really curiosity to see if what you're passing is working. Why not?
Well, I would rebut that a little bit. The figures I've seen are around $1,000 reduction in premiums.
And that's a self-reported information, and I'm not even seeing the data. It's not been produced.
Sure. Well, I'm all for accountability. So what we can say already is that we've seen significant depopulation from citizens based on the steps we've taken. So I think you have a few issues. You have obviously the wild, wild west of litigation, which we addressed in the most recent special session. Well, not the most recent, but the one last November, right after the election, to put a stop to that. You have an additional issue with, frankly, the cost of goods, which we can't really do anything about legislatively. The cost of construction materials has gone through the roof, pardon the pun, and then that's an issue as well. And then the final one is hardening. And I do believe that through technology and enhanced construction materials and processes, that we'll get to a place that I saw when I toured Hurricane Ian damage, where you had one house that didn't even look like it was in a rainstorm, that looks untouched because they were post-Andrew building code, built well, and then a house right next to it that's in rubble. And that house in rubble was pre-Andrew, presumably an older home that didn't have those things. The My Safe Florida Home program is designed for those people. So I believe in the program. I believe we should look at ways to expand it. But absolutely, we always want to have accountability around everything. We always have to measure. The early measurements on the things we have done is positive. The ultimate proof and the ultimate thing we're all looking for is a reduction in the increase in rates, and hopefully a reduction in rates. I don't think we'll ever go back to where we were before Bidenflation. I mean, inflation's gone up, whatever it's 20, 25, 30% over the last several years. And so we're never going to see it go back in nominal terms, but I want to see some flattening out of that, more people coming into the market. And we're seeing that. It's early, but until we get to a place where consumers start to see some relief, I won't be happy. Our members won't be happy.
But if this program is indeed saving Floridians $1,000 on average on their premium, doesn't that sound like the greatest success you guys could possibly imagine? I mean, for a lot of people, that's 50% of the premium. Why aren't you spending every single dollar possible into this program if it's indeed saving people $1,000 on their premium?
Well, about every single dollar possible, because we have other priorities in the legislature. But I think your point is well taken to say that compared to some of the things we were kind of forced into doing, like propping up reinsurance when we were told people might not have reinsurance, which to translate for folks with mortgages means that your mortgage is going to get called because you don't have insurance on your home. I don't like doing that at all because that's putting money into the private sector. They need to handle their own issues. But helping consumers, especially those that are low income, that program also has a cap on how much your home can be worth and still receive that support. So I agree with you that we should look at, and we will look in the regular session at, what else can we do in the hardening area. I think this is a really, really important area we will work on in this last session. I hope my colleagues, my successors will also look at that going forward. We've got to get technology to bear and improve construction materials and hardening for those houses that are already constructed. And this is one way we do that.
So this will be refunded?
Why not open it up to condo
Pardon? So
owners?
this will be refunded in the next session?
Well, we just put money toward it, absolutely.
Well, that's for the backlog.
Yeah, to address the backlog, yes. And so I'm looking, and once we get into the regular session where we have additional time for additional questions from members of the press, from the public, talk to your point about, okay, what's the proof that this is actually helping? What has this gotten us? But it just sure seems like a more common sense way to approach it. You're helping the consumer directly. You're making it so that they have, if there is a hurricane, the likelihood of the severity, we talk about probability and severity, in the insurance world, the severity of the damage, meaning the claim amount that we all get to pay for in increased premiums, will be lower because now they've got tie downs. Now they have hurricane windows. Now they have a garage that doesn't blow in with tropical storm winds. All of these things then save big dollars by spending some little dollars today. And so we're going to continue with that program for sure.
Why not open it up to condo owners, given how great?
We may. Yeah, we may.
May?
Yeah, we may. No, we may. I mean, I think it's a legitimate concern, and so I'm very open to doing that. This was about, again, special sessions are limited in focus. I know there was some theatrics about why aren't you talking about affordable housing and Medicaid. That wasn't what we were working on today. We're working on things where we have gaps in education spending, gaps in this case, oversubscription on my Safe Florida Home. We wanted to close those gaps for people before we get into regular session. So when we get into regular session, we'll look at condos and everybody else that could benefit from this. And I think it's one of those things, as we measure, that we need to look at potentially expanding across the board.
So you have universal school choice in Florida now, so basically anybody who wants a voucher can get one. Well, but there's still a limit for the special needs kid. Why does Florida have a cap on the unique abilities vouchers? Why does that need it?
The reason for the cap is because there's a sliding scale of severity, and so sometimes what is like around $8,000 for an FES student, maybe $20,000+, depending. And we just don't know who those people are. It's harder for us to estimate that. But we believed, and we were pretty much on the mark in our estimates. The one place where we came up a little short is with the UA kids. We believe that we increased the percentage of growth year over year, that we were going to have more than enough room under that cap. We believe that we will hit that cap or have hit that cap depending on how you measure it. And so the special session obviously is to keep the promise that I made to people that parents with children with unique abilities do not have to tell their kids no to get those additional services that they need. And so going into regular session, I think we need to look at, is there a better way for us to estimate this? I don't really like the cap. I don't believe we should have a cap necessarily, but it was a fiscal constraint because it's harder to estimate those kids. We don't know who's coming and how severe their situation is and how much money would be attributed to the total amount of people on that program.
What about the frustrations that were mentioned about Step Up for Students? There was testimony in committee yesterday about some school operators who said that they had to take out high interest loans up to 30% because their money wasn't coming in on time to keep up payroll and do all these things. What would you like to see done next session regarding this issue?
Yeah, we are absolutely going to have a bill to address a lot of things. One of the Democrat members had an amendment that I like. For a special session, we want to stay laser focused on what we were focused on. But we were absolutely going to look at how do we make this more efficient? How do we get the money out faster for people? And what I think your readers and listeners need to know is that the system is designed in favor of accountability, meaning there are multiple steps and wickets that have to be run through. Because what we don't want to have, because you could be asking me questions about this, is a parent that gets a scholarship for their children that's not really a parent and doesn't really have a child. That's a scandal, and that's not what we want. And so I think, it's been biased certainly in that direction. So one of the things we need to look at is if you've been vetted, say you're a UA kid and you've been vetted multiple years, why do we need to wait months and months to release that money for you? So I think we're going to look at some ways to get the money out faster, consistent with accountability, where we've already demonstrated that accountability, so we don't have a situation where there's a cash crunch, because when you go from 5% of your mix of students to 15, 20, 25% that are on scholarship, then it matters a lot when that money comes. And so yes, I do have concerns about that. I will say one thing in their defense, at least, is that the bill passed, they had a short runway before it was time to execute and go. That doesn't mean I excuse it at the end, because they still needed to deliver and they believe they could deliver. So there's always competition. Competition is good. Other people have a chance, if they believe they can serve the needs of our students, to come in and because we have a lot of growth, and share with some of that servicing. But I think overall they had a Herculean task. I think they performed well overall, but am I completely satisfied? No, I'm not.
That last comment, is that indicating that maybe a new scholarship funding organizations would benefit the whole system?
I think competition is always a good thing. And in HB1, we opened up, we increased the administrative fee a little bit. I mean, some of the people that are asking to come in, though, I think it was 3.5 maybe, and they wanted 10%. And I said, no, we're not going to go to 10%, because that's the taxpayers' money. And so if they can come in and compete on a level playing field, what we're not going to do is dump a bunch of taxpayer money to have that competition. But we did open it up in several material ways for competition to come in. I understand there are people now, waiting to do so, and that will over time make this a much more streamlined process. And overall, I'm very, very happy with how the program has performed. It was largely on estimate. We put aside $350 million in case we went over. We came nowhere close to that. You had a left-leaning organization that said it was going to cost $4 billion. They were nowhere close to the truth. I think they knew they were nowhere close to the truth, but that caused a lot of consternation, a lot of questions from members of the press about it legitimately, and that has been proven to be false. And so in large respects, I'm extremely happy with how the program has succeeded. We talked about Jewish day schools today on the floor. Over the last 5 years, they've grown by 50%. The gentleman, the rabbi that gave the prayer this morning, runs one, Harvard grad. I'm not sure his kids are going to Harvard, but he wants them to. He educates the best of the best, and it's a really high-level program. And so we're proud that we have a place in Florida for Jewish students, for Christian students, for people or secular students from all walks of life that can get the education that best fits their needs. I don't define what that is. The parent and the student should define what that is. And we have now in Florida a place where that will grow, a place where there's innovation with the size of our economy, where you'll see a lot of people come in and solve problems about why a dyslexic student can't read. These kinds of things, there'll be a lot of power and a lot of money behind getting that done. And so I'm excited for the future of HB1.
Let's get a last question, guys.
I was hoping you could talk to why you decided to put Representative Nixon's resolution on the schedule today.
Yeah.
Members of her own caucus tried to get her to remove it. I'm curious, why hear it?
Yeah, so let me be crystal clear. Representative Nixon put her resolution on the floor today. So she had an opportunity to withdraw it even on the floor. She chose not to. And had she done that, we would not have heard the eloquent speeches from both sides of the aisle, including Representative Gottlieb from the floor. I'm glad he gave that speech. I'm glad Representative Cassell and Caruso and Fine and others spoke today eloquently about the importance of this moment we're in. And I don't think we can forget it was a moment that caught my attention when Mr. Schachter spoke about how the Holocaust began with these protests that we've seen, people overrunning airports. This kind of thing is how the Holocaust began, and then it led to more acts of violence. And unless you say clearly and unequivocally that we will not stand for this, and I'm saying today we will not stand for this in the state of Florida. And so if we need to go out and have a task force to go prosecute people, that's what we're going to do. But we're not going to allow our Jewish citizens to be victimized, period. And that goes for black people that are victimized in Jacksonville. We're not going to let that get out of that little thing to get out of the bowl. It's going to stay in there, and it's not going to happen in Florida. And we're going to be very, very deliberate about speaking with moral clarity. If you can't speak with moral clarity on this issue, you can't speak with moral clarity on anything. And the problem with that resolution is it talked about occupied Palestine. And we all know, most people, or maybe some people are learning what that means. But what that means is that no Jews exist in Israel. That's what it means. And so she chose to put up that resolution, and you saw where the vote was, and you saw who didn't show up for the vote, who was here.
Do you expect that the governor
appreciate it
will
all.
have a
Okay.
ceremony
He tells me I have to
for the
go.
resolution?